Let's talk about learning a foreign language. And I'm not just talking about those with dyslexia, but foreign language teaching for everyone. There is no reason for a separate discussion. Oral language learning is the same for those with or without dyslexia. My 3 kids have been taking Spanish language classes since elementary school. My son is in Spanish 3 as a high schooler, and he cannot speak a lick of it. Why not, you may ask? Did he not study, pay attention, turn in assignments? Is he learning disabled? No to all of those things. I'll tell you what he has done. Read textbook assignments, filled out worksheets, conjugated verbs on paper, and occasionally has had to speak. This is always the part where he can't get a good grade on a quiz or test. I took 3 years of Spanish in high school. I could only ask, ¿Puedo ir al baño? And of course, general phrases like, ¿Cómo está? Muy bien. De nada. But a real conversation? Nope. As an adult, I am determined to learn Spanish. Several years ago, I purchased a well-known foreign language computer program. I was cruising. I was passing levels and building a visual vocabulary of words. Of course, learning meant matching words to pictures, answering multiple choice questions, and I relied upon visual memory. That's not how we learn to speak a new language. The crazy thing about this program was to pass the unit, I needed to respond correctly verbally. That didn't happen. What is my point? Why on earth, with what we know about language acquisition, are we still teaching foreign languages using textbooks and worksheets? I am sure some schools have it right and are teaching foreign languages the way we learned our native tongue, by listening, verbally responding, increasing oral vocabulary, correcting verbal grammar based on feedback. But unfortunately, in my experiences, this is not the norm for foreign language teaching in mainstream schools. Sidebar: for schools that incorporate language immersion programs, please screen your students for phonemic skills. Those with dyslexia should not be in a foreign language immersion elementary classroom. You can use various screening tools to identify students for auditory phonemic awareness skills, which are often a red flag for dyslexia or other reading difficulties as young as 5 years old. Please think of this. When we are born in an ideal world with all of our senses intact, we are designed to communicate by listening, seeing, verbalizing, imitating, and eventually speaking. Let's look at the developmental progression of a typical baby in the United States, given an ideal situation. All of their senses are in place, and there are no barriers such as vision or hearing loss. According to the Mayo Clinic, by the end of 3 months, a baby may smile, coo, attend when spoken to, and cry to communicate needs. Jump ahead to the full 2 years, and by the end of 24 months, use simple 2-word phrases such as more milk, ask simple questions, go bye-bye, speak 50 words or more, talk well enough to be understood at least 50% of the time by primary caregivers. Why do I mention all of this? Because in the first 2 years of life, a human is not learning a new language by reading it or writing it. Yet, we expect students to learn a foreign language doing precisely that. Can you imagine having a baby and immediately giving them a book to read and paper to write? According to developmental milestones, babies take 2 years of listening and observing to produce understandable communication 50% of the time. Granted, we cannot directly compare new babies to children, teens, or adults trying to learn a new language. We benefit from a primary native language and have learned a lot of nonverbal communication. That said, learning a language should not be different. We have an enormous advantage over infants and toddlers, so we should acquire a new language more readily. In most schools, kids are handed textbooks, worksheets, and if they're lucky, an instructor who does speak the foreign language in class. But let's face it, is that sufficient to learn an entirely new language even with 1 class period of foreign language per day? Of course not. However, That is how many schools continue to teach a foreign language. I am now learning Spanish again, but not by reading texts or matching pictures or writing out verbs. I am learning entirely by auditory language learning program on my phone. I have learned more Spanish in 3 months using this program on my phone than 3 years of high school Spanish class. I am making a main point here. Language acquisition is not successful if you start with reading and writing. If you have a disability, such as dyslexia, learning a foreign language the way most schools teach it, through reading and writing, is extremely hard. I encourage you to do what my daughter, who has a dyslexic brain, is doing. She is taking American Sign Language to meet the foreign language requirement for high school. What is better, she can still receive an honors diploma learning American Sign Language. Parents, guardians, and teachers, respectfully question your curriculum coordinators and administrators on the rationale behind foreign language instruction, emphasizing reading and writing, when that should be secondary to listening and responding verbally. Written language is a man-made construct. On the other hand, verbal, visual, and physical communication is innate. I encourage everyone to learn a second language or more. I strongly suggest ditching textbooks, worksheets, and writing assignments. Instead, find a program that primarily teaches a new language using conversation with feedback with a well-thought-out language learning progression. If you have a language-based learning disability, I also recommend learning American Sign Language.